Hello, children. Welcome back to your English class. Let's read out Chapter 10, The Great Stone Face 2, and this is the last chapter also in your English literature. We have already completed the first part of the story, The Great Stone Face, and this is the second part. And we are aware of the writer of The Great Stone Face, that is Nathaniel Hawthorne is the writer of this chapter, The Great Stone Face 1 as well The Great Stone Face 2. Now let's continue the reading. Many years passed. Ernest was now a man of middle age to his neighbors, who never suspected that he was anything more than an ordinary and familiar face. He was only a humble and hard-working, though thoughtful person. But what about the old prophecy? As you know, the meaning of prophecy, that is forecast. Was it ever fulfilled? Now let's read and find out in second part of the story. The years hurried on and brought white hair upon the head of Ernest, and made wrinkles across his forehead and furrows in his cheeks. He was an old man. But not in vain had he grown old. More numerous than the white hair on his head were the wise thoughts in his mind. And Ernest has ceased. Ceased means stopped. To be obscure. Obscure means not well known. Unsought. Unsought means unasked. For undesired had come the fame which so many seek. He had become famous beyond the limits of the valley. College professors and even the active men of the cities came from far to see and converse with Ernest, and he received them with gentle sincerity and spoke freely with them of whatever came uppermost or lay deepest in his heart or their own. While they talked together, his face would brighten unawares and shine upon them as with a mild evening light. Now let's summarize these paragraphs. Ernest still lived in his native valley. He was a simple-hearted man. He always worked for the betterment of the world. Though he was considered to be an ordinary man, yet he was humble and rich in thoughts. With the passage of time, Ernest became old. He had wise thoughts in his mind. He had become famous all over the world. Man came from distant places to see and speak to him. Now look at the paragraph 2 on page number 133. While Ernest had been growing old, God had granted a new poet to this earth. He too was a native of the valley, but had spent the greater part of his life in distant cities, pouring out his sweet music wherever, everywhere. Neither was the great stone face forgotten, for the poet had celebrated it in a poem. The songs of this poet found their way to Ernest. He read them after his customary toil, seated on the bench before his cottage door. As he read, he lifted his eyes to the mountain. "O great stone face," he said, "is not this man worthy to be your likeness?" The face seems to smile, but did not answer. Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away, had not only heard of Ernest, but had thought much about his character, and wished to meet this man whose wisdom walked hand in hand with the noble simplicity of his life. One summer day, therefore, he arrived at Ernest's door, where he found the good old man holding a book in his hand, which he read, and then, with a finger between the leaves, looked lovingly at the great stone face. "Good evening," said the poet. "Can you give a traveler a night's shelter?" "Gladly," answered Ernest, and then he added, smiling, "I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitably at a stranger." The poet sat down beside him, and he and Ernest talked together. Never before had the poet talked with a man like Ernest, so wise and gentle and kind. Ernest, on the other hand, was moved by the living images flung out of the poet's mind. As Ernest listened to the poet, he imagined that the great stone face was bending forward to listen too. He gazed into the poet's eyes. "Who are you, my gifted guest?" he asked. The poet laid his finger on the book that Ernest had been reading. "You have read these poems," said he. "You know me, then, for I wrote them." Again and again, Ernest examined the poet's features. He turned towards the great stone face, then back. He shook his head and sighed. "Why had you said?" inquired the poet. "Because," replied Ernest, "all through life I have awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy, and when I read these poems, I hope that it might be fulfilled in you." "You hoped," answered the poet, faintly smiling, "to find in me the likeness of the great stone face. I am not worthy to be its likeness." "And why not?" asked Ernest. He pointed to the book. "Are not those thoughts worthy? You can hear in them the distant voice of a heavenly song. But my life, dear Ernest, has not corresponded with my thoughts. I have had grand dreams, but they have been only dreams. Sometimes I lack faith in my own thoughts. Why, then, pure seeker of the good and true, should you hope to find me in the face of the mountain?" The poet spoke steadily, and his eyes were wet with tears. So too were those of Ernest. At the hour of sunset, he had long been accustomed. Ernest was to speak to a group of neighbors in the open air. Together, he and the poet went to the meeting place. Arm in arm, from there could be seen the great stone face. Now let's summarize these paragraphs. A new poet had appeared on earth while Ernest had been growing old. The poet was native of Ernest Valley, but had stayed in distant cities for a long period. Ernest happened to read his songs. He thought the poet must bear likeness with the great stone face. He lifted his eyes to the mountain. The face seemed to smile, but did not answer. The poet had heard of Ernest's character. One day he came to his door. Ernest was reading a book and glancing lovingly at the mountain from time to time. Ernest gave him shelter for the night. The great stone face looked kindly at the poet. The poet found Ernest wise, gentle, and kind. Ernest was also moved by the poet's mind. It seemed the grey stone face was bending forward to listen to the poet. Ernest examined the poet's features. He hoped the poet was the person he had been waiting for. The poet declared himself unworthy of the likeness of the stone face. His life was different from his poems. Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around upon his audience. He began to speak to the people what was in his heart and mind. His words had power because they agreed with his thoughts, and his thoughts had reality and depth because they harmonized with the life which he had always lived. It was not mere breath that the preacher uttered, they were the words of life. A life of good deeds and selfless love was melted into them. The poet, as he listened, felt that the life and character of Ernest were a nobler strain of poetry than he had ever written. His eyes filled with tears, and he said to himself that never was there so worthy a sage as that mild, sweet, thoughtful face with the glory of white hair diffused about it. At a distance, but clearly to be seen, high up in the golden light of the setting sun, appeared the great stone face with white mist around it, like the white hair around the brow of Ernest. At that moment, Ernest's face took on an expression so grand that the poet was moved to throw his arms up and shout, "Behold, behold, Ernest is himself the likeness of the great stone face." Then all the people looked and saw that what the poet said was true. The prophecy was fulfilled. Now let's summarize these paragraphs. Ernest used to speak to his neighbors every evening. The poet also accompanied him. The poet listened to his talk. He felt that Ernest's life and character were a far nobler kind of poetry than his own poems. Just then, the poet saw the great stone face. He declared Ernest as the likeness of great stone face. Everybody agreed with him. Now, let's continue the last para of the last chapter given on page number 136. But Ernest, having finished what he had to say, took the poet's arm and walked slowly homeward, still hoping that some wiser and better man than himself would by and by appear, bearing a resemblance to the great stone face. By Nathaniel Hawthorne. So let's conclude that Ernest still hoped that someone wiser and better than himself would appear sometime, bearing a likeness to the great stone face.